President Cyril Ramaphosa has extended the deployment of SANDF in the DRC and Mozambique. The deployment in the DRC covers over 1,000 members of the SANDF that are part of the United Nations Organization Stabilization Mission. In Mozambique, members are tasked for Operation Copper Maritime Security Patrols. Joining us for more on this is Dean Wingrin, who's a defense analyst. Dean, thank you so much for joining us this evening on News at Prime. What's your reaction to this news about this extension?
This is to be expected. And these deployments overseas, the President is required to report to Parliament annually when these deployments are extended. So with the troops in the DRC, they've been there since 1999, which is almost 25 years now. But by agreement between the UN and the DRC government, the UN is withdrawing from the DRC. And the final date for that withdrawal is the 20th of December this year. Hence the presidential authorization for the troops to the 20th December. But I expect the South African troops to be withdrawn from the UN mission probably in the next month or two. Although there will probably be still troops in the DRC under the SADC mission.
This phasing out of MONUSCO troops as well, as you said, they've been there since 1999 already. What should we make of that the UN is withdrawing their troops who have been there since 1999?
That's right. I think the big lesson from this is that the solution to the disturbances and the rebel activity in the eastern DRC cannot be fixed by military means. It definitely requires a political resolution, and that means the DRC government, Malawi, who supports the M23 rebel group, which is the main rebel group in the eastern DRC, plus the hundreds of smaller rebel groups. Something has to be done together with SADC to sort this out, because if 15,000 UN troops could not bring peace to the region, I don't think 5,000 SADC troops will make much difference.
Yeah, true. And so what does that mean for our troops as well, the SADC troops? Are they now on their own as soon as MONUSCO gets this withdrawal done? Because the first phase is happening in June. So it will phase out quite a bit, and they will be somewhat on their own.
That's right. There's no direct liaison between the UN troops and the SADC troops. So with the new mission in the SADC mission in the eastern DRC, South Africa together with Tanzania and the other supporters, Malawi as well, they have to start from scratch and build up the troops. I believe South Africa has about 600 in theatre at the moment. There's a maximum of, I think, 2,900 that's been authorized. But already there's been deaths amongst South African troops. There have been injuries as well, and troops wounded from rebel activity. And that's partly of the problem. South Africa's defense budget just cannot support these external missions, renewing and providing them with proper equipment and with the proper air support that these troops require.
Speaking of that cost as well, with those 2,900 troops that will be deployed from South Africa, it is estimated that it will cost the SANDF about 2.37 billion rand. Is this 2.37 billion rand that we have?
No, and that's the problem. At least on the UN contributions to the UN mission, the UN would refund South Africa for the cost of those troops and the support of the troops, as well as the equipment that was used. They wouldn't refund 100% of it, but a significant, approximately 3/4 of the cost would then be refunded back to South Africa. With the SADC mission, it appears that SADC doesn't really have funds to refund South Africa for any of the expenses. So it comes straight off the defense budget. Now, just when the president authorized this new SADC mission, he said that the budget would be found. The new budget, South African budget, has been announced. It's come and gone, and still no funding has been provided for this mission. And thus, it comes from the defense budget, which means even less money for payment of soldiers, for new equipment, maintenance, and so on.
And will they able to fare against these rebels without the protection of the UN troops as well? But I also want us, Dean, to really unpack. I mean, we're saying that it hasn't been solved since 1999 when the UN decided to establish MONUSCO there. Is that them just washing their hands and saying, well, look, solve this politically, because clearly having boots on the ground and having armed men on the ground is not assisting? Is that where we leave it?
Well, that's the problem. The UN has been there for 25 years. The East African community has also been there in the Eastern DRC, assisting the Congolese government in fighting the rebels. The Congolese government has sort of, for intents and purposes, they've kicked out the UN, and now they've also kicked out the East African community. And thus SADC is now suddenly being brought in. We have the most southernmost country of the SADC region, South Africa, now trying to sort out and assist the government of the most northern country in the SADC region, being the DRC, with the assistance of Tanzania and Malawi. But other direct neighbors of the DRC doesn't seem to be assisting. And it's just too few troops to make any meaningful impact on the multitude of rebel groups there. And that's, I say, it's really a holding position that the SADC mission is there for, and it's really up to the politicians to drive the political resolution and that initiative to solve this problem, because it won't be solved militarily.
I mean, what kind of impact will this have on DRC and its people as well? Also considering that the South African troops, this extension is until mid-December. Thereafter, they also will be withdrawing.
Well, the troops are in the eastern DRC, which is the North Kivu and the South Kivu provinces. I expect the troops to, at the end of December, where the current authorization expires, it will be extended by the president. Now, President Ramaphosa had, I think it was last week, had a meeting with the Rwanda president, and Rwanda is the main supporter of the M23 rebel group. And I think that is the way it must go. The civilians are having a terrible time in Goma and in the other towns in that area. And the problem being as well that the rebels, they're not easily identifiable, that they're dressed in civilian clothes. They come right up to the South African camps and the other UN and SADC camps. They'll ask for work. They will do reconnaissance and see what's happening there. Then they will retreat, and then they will make their plans to attack the troops. And the area is not conducive to easily transporting troops around. The roads are in bad condition. It's muddy. It's dense forests as well. And without South Africa having the air cover, Oryx helicopters for logistics and transport, the Roy Falk attack helicopter to cover them and to press their attacks against the rebel groups, it's not easy for the defense force to be there.
Considering Rwanda's role in relationship with those rebels as well, and the DRC's neighboring countries not actually coming on board with manning and bringing more boots on the ground, is this a losing battle for the DRC? Has it been shunned by not only the world, but also Africa?
Yeah, I think it's in the last year or two, there's been a general perception that peacekeeping itself has taken a back foot in the world's nations' minds, and you can see the withdrawal of the UN out of the DRC, and it is the Congolese government. Although the South African troops are very well trained, as will be the Malawi and Tanzanian troops, their support is just not there, and they're not there in numbers. And the Congolese government, I think, is also on a back foot in the sense that they're also looking at bringing in mercenaries to help and support them. And there's talk of the Russian ex-Wagner troops, Africa Corps as well, to support them. And they just, the Congolese government, as I say, it's in a holding position and not in a position to actually move forward and actually take out these various rebel groups, and particularly with Rwanda providing more and more support to the M23 with very advanced weapons. We call them a rebel group, but they actually are quite technologically advanced, and they're certainly learning the lessons from the Ukraine-Russia battle with the use of drones and so on.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening on News at Prime. That was defense analyst and expert Dean Wingrin.